I've said it before and I'll say it again. I have enough crap that something is always broken on or in need of repair. Uh, this time around, the little bench grinder, cheapo thing, but seemed to be just a switch for it, and it still kind of works. So the switch was kind of taken out and looked at, and some plastic in there had broken, some picture taken to be able to get a new switch in place. Kind of was able to fit all the contact points in the old switch, just to confirm that it was just a switch and nothing more serious. Take it off, could source a new switch locally for like 40 Swedish Monopoly money, like $4. And it was the correct size and everything. Had even big holes that I could reuse the screw-on contacts that the old switch had used. I thought I would have to change the contacts, but it was pretty much bolt-on. I did not get a new cover for it. They didn't have that, but I think if I could source a cover, but I won't bother. The old one had kind of a dust cover on it that was also cracked and broken. Quick test that everything works, then putting it back in place on the bench. Source some bigger screws for that because it was kind of ripping out of the bench. My dad's bike had a broken indicator, and sure we can buy a new one, but we went cheapo, and ground kind of a little ridge there. It will be using some shrink tubing, and I missed a little heated some nails and pushed them in to give it a little bit more rigidity. Made some marks, drilled a couple of small holes. Should have made them a tiny bit bigger. Some shrink tubing, but was kind of a hassle getting everything in place, so I ended up on doing it on the inside. Getting access to the wiring back here is a little tricky, so we tried to avoid that. Was eventually able to push things together to the point I was happy with it. Then on with the shrink tubing and heating that to hold things up, and hopefully this will last for a while longer. So pretty much zero expense fixing that. Snowmobile, most of the time something is up with, and now the steering rod going out to the ski in the front was almost all the way loose. Being able to lift the muffler, it was possible to tighten that up. There will be more snowmobile issues here because the grips have started coming down. I'm not sure if it's old age or it's like they've become a bit too big. Try just removing them and adding some hairspray. That's usually enough to hold them in place, but that didn't help. And the heated grips are broken, but that won't be fixed this time around. Sometime in the future. Found some old motorcycle grips that had a much tighter fit, so some hairspray to lube and kind of glue it in place. A couple of these kicks, spark in Swedish. You have the iron rails to travel on the snow and ice. You just stand on it and kick with the other foot. But for some reason it was quite crooked. We think it has been frozen in the snow and ice at some point, and they have used brute force to wiggle it back and forth to get it out, and that had made everything kind of crooked, so I didn't want to travel in a straight line. But now it's good enough to be used at least. Oh yeah, I found the video footage where we plugged that front tire that now has a tube in it, and the sides are kind of thin, and the whole damage was a little bit on the big side, and it's a crack forming here, so Hopefully the tire will last a few more years now with a tube in it. My dad's car got some love. I had earlier when it had issues, I had the air filter out and just cleaned it, but now I bought a new one, and a few of the screws were quite rusty and hard to work with, so we sourced some new stainless screws that will work better. They had kind of threads all the way, but we ground away the upper portion to make them smooth, so they will stay in the lid the same as the original screws. We also removed the cabin filter, and I'm not sure who changed this cabin filter in the past. My dad kind of says he thinks he has replaced it, but they did not do a very good job because it's way too small and it's just lays down there, so the air just passes by the air filter, doesn't go actually through it. Here is what a proper installation of a cabin filter on these Peugeot versus a Citroën. I can never remember what kind of car he drives, but it's kind of a van. Then my sister had more car issues. The front springs were broken, both of them. I'm not gonna cover this in any detail, but there are plenty of better channels that handle cars, but they recommend you remove the lower link arm down here, and we struggled with that for a long time but didn't have any good progress, and the tool we had bought was too cheap and too weak, so it kind of deformed. And to be able to see if we could have it done, we tried to remove the just the shock from and suspension from the wheel hub, and that worked, and that's what we have done in the past. But since they said you had to do it the other way, we thought it wouldn't be clearance enough to get it all the way out, but plenty of clearance, so I'm not sure why the guide wants you to do more steps than needed. And with that out, it was just a matter of compressing the springs and getting them into place on the shock, and it just takes time, and have the correct tools to compress the springs. On the other side, we didn't even look at the other solution, we just went straight ahead, so that was pretty fast. I guess we spent at least 2 hours messing with getting the lower arm loose from the wheel hub unnecessarily. That's it. If anyone have any questions regarding my endeavors or the forest machines, or do not hesitate to comment, I will try to reply.